Welcome to the Elevate podcast, brought to you by the Registered Master Builders. Each week we explore the ideas and practices that help us get the best from our businesses, our teams and ourselves. I'm your host, Ryan Castle. We talk to experts, advocates and business owners in the construction industry to share their knowledge, insights and experiences to help you build a better business and enjoy a better life. Now let the business building begin. Welcome along to our episode of the Elevate Master Builders podcast. And today we are joined by Alex and Dylan of Levela Deconstruction. I think that's a pretty interesting name, Deconstruction. That's not one we've heard a lot of. Maybe Alex, can we hear from you first? How did the name Deconstruction come about?
Yeah, so that's funny. We talk about the name in the industry quite a lot and how we sat around at the pub and decided we wanted to differentiate ourselves from demolition as we entered the market, and we saw the name involving deconstruction so that we could say this is what we do differently. And as we'll discuss, I'm sure, over the podcast, the differences and what people's perception of deconstruction and demolition is. Deconstruction is a bit of a key word now, but it was just
something to try and differentiate us from everyone else.
Yeah. And then a bit of random name generating, and I think probably a couple of afternoons at the pub after work where we were currently working, and kind of just settled on something. Leveler, we level the site. Once the house is gone, it's a level site, and it was a bit of a play on words, and here we are now.
Like many a good Kiwi business, generated in the pub over a couple of beers. I love that. Hey, Dylan, maybe if we come to you, I'm curious when you were thinking about how different you wanted this business to be to maybe the typical scenario of demolition, and what maybe the typical perception of that. What were you trying to do differently with Levela?
We really saw the waste firsthand, like coming in, going straight out of high school into the demolition and deconstruction industry, and just noticing how much good stuff is ending up in landfill, and just saying there's got to be something else out there. And there wasn't in New Zealand really at the time anything else deconstruction wise, but looking over to places like the States where they've got regulations around diversion from landfill, we thought that's a great way to follow and be industry changing and do right by not just our morals but the environment as well.
Yeah, nice. That's good alignment. So just so I understand, currently in the New Zealand market, we don't have any policy about diversion from landfill. You can, if you want to, you can scoop the whole lot up and chuck it straight in landfill.
Absolutely.
Yeah, terrible. You guys might know, I have seen the stat before, the amount of, or the percentage of our total landfill that is construction and building waste. It's this really high number. I can't remember exactly. Do you guys know what their number is?
Yeah, it's high. I don't know the exact number for construction and demolition waste, but I know it does equate to close to 50% of New Zealand's total landfill weight. It's quite scary.
It is. Maybe talk us through what you've done, how you do things differently compared to maybe normal demolition that is just scooping everything up and chucking it straight into landfill. How do you guys think about a job when you first come across it? How would you typically be doing things differently from maybe a traditional demolition approach?
Yeah, so a good way to look at what we do is we unbuild houses. So we go in with power tools, crowbar, sledgehammer, and bring a whole house down to the ground by safely dismantling it, instead of turning up with a digger and sending it all to landfill or to a recycler and them streaming it. Yeah, our whole methodology is based around maximizing the reuse and then going to recyclability and then ultimately landfill with residual waste. The only time you see a digger turn up on one of our sites is when there's either just concrete piles or a concrete slab at the end.
I like that. And I guess we hear a lot of noise about sustainability. It feels like you guys are actually doing something about it, which is absolutely fantastic. What's your insight of the general construction zone out there? Are you hearing more organizations looking to be more sustainable, inquiring about how you guys are going to deal with the waste coming off their sites? What are you observing there?
It's a bit 50-50. There's always going to be people that aren't sustainably driven, and will just follow the norms. But there's definitely noise out there of building companies and architects out there as well that are wanting to, think more about where materials are ending up in the end of life side of things at the start of the build, because we really are in Auckland the start of their projects. So it's getting better.
Yeah, there'll always be both ways. There'll always be people, if there's no regulations forcing people to do things, you're not going to capture those people. But there's also a lot of people, and the Kiwi green New Zealand is the big image we like to hold on to, and so there's always people who want something new and something different, and that's why we try and educate around the difference of what we provide. We still get rid of the building, but in a different way.
I'm really curious, maybe you could take us through a couple of projects you've worked on. Would love to understand how you assess a project right at the beginning, and then maybe lead us through some of the materials that you're able to recycle or retain that are not going to landfill. What are some of the things that you are able to achieve in these kind of projects?
We operate just like any other business. We quote work, we inspect sites, and kind of deliver the best price we can. It might be a competitive tender. It might be, a homeowner's getting a few quotes for things. So we'll talk about what we do and why things cost a certain way. And then also go into the detail of what can be kept out of a house, which for us is almost everything. We've got stats as well about what gets reused and recycled, and everything from floorboards, weatherboards, internal doors, external joinery, light fittings, power points. The options are kind of endless. So it's almost a hard question to answer. We can do anything and reuse anything, and then obviously anything of a lower quality. So there's always a bit of a stipulation to people as well. Like, we can't see the framing right now, so we want to reuse it, and we'll do the best we can to reuse it. But, if we open it up and it's full of, we have borer is kind of like a
common for New Zealand, then.
Common thing here, kind of like a termite, but not as bad. And so, if we open walls up and find those kinds of materials, then obviously it's going to be recycled, but still not landfilled.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll assess, we'll crawl under houses, we'll go up in roof spaces and see what we can see to give the best idea of what can be reused versus recycled, and then go from there.
Love it. Okay. And I understand you've done some work recently for the Ministry of Education. Is that right?
Yes. Takapuna High School.
Yeah, grammar school.
Mm-hmm. And that was a very large building that had many renovations over its life. I mean, it's still alive. They're still using it, still working on it. And the top floor was all leaking. Whoever had built it, it hadn't been done very well. So they needed to remove the top floor of this building. So it was a hard job for a high reach digger to kind of do, to be able to save the rest of the building underneath it to be re-roofed, so to speak. And we got the call and said, can you come and price this up, tell us how you'll do it? And Dylan, you were there on that project more, so you have probably some more insight on the project.
It was a good project to work on. We reused all the bricks, donating them back to community centres. All joinery was getting removed and donated to a lot of our Pacifica connections, and they've gone back to Samoa. And awesome. Same with a lot of the structural steel from that building. That's part of the hard thing that we have here is reusing materials and finding outlets for reusable materials back into new builds. A lot of the pine framing and structural steel will need to get either stress tested or recertified to be reintegrated. So a lot of the Pacifica connections are great for taking some of that stuff that they are able to reuse in structural elements over there.
I think the steel from that school ended up being like a 5-bay high stud garage. It was impressive what they had done with it.
And you said that was like a competitive tender for that work. Did you get any guidance from the Ministry of Education about how important recycling and keeping things out of landfill were? Was that something they were already asking for?
Yeah. That's what they were asking for. They really wanted to deliver something better than anybody else could. And so there was a lot of discussions about what we'll do and how we'll do it, and then reporting throughout, and site visits to see how it all happens.
Okay. It's good to see leadership from government around those kind of things, because it's one thing to talk about sustainability at a government level, but it's actually great to see it in action and them actually prioritising organisations like yourselves that can do the work and do it responsibly. That's good to hear. Tell me, what would be holding us back as a construction industry from doing more deconstruction and less demolition? You kind of touched on maybe not a lot of regulation for us currently. Is it? I assume there's some kind of premium that people will pay to have this approach done rather than just the straight to landfill.
I think the main stipulation around deconstruction is time restraints. People seem to think it's going to take a long period of time for us to pull a house down. We can do your standard 90 square meter weatherboard house in under 2 weeks. So for us, we don't think that's a long time, but some people do think that's a long time when, in comparison to what a digger could do.
Sure.
So that's the main issue we're facing. And cost comparison, sometimes we can be cheaper than a digger.
We've been told we've been better priced than machines to do a lot of jobs like that. And then, we've done our best to figure out pricing across kind of our standard jobs, and your standard kind of 90 to 120 square meter house, we're very similar.
Yeah. And we have to be, we wouldn't be able to exist in a market if we weren't competitive for the last 4 years in the private industry. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems like an incredible win-win if you guys are able to deliver market competitive pricing and get a much better outcome for the environment and recycling. I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer to me for organisations to look at this approach.
The social benefits that it creates, there's a lot more job opportunity in deconstruction compared to the traditional digger demolition. We can have upwards of 4 to 5 people on site for extended periods of time instead of maybe 2 to 3 guys on site for a couple of days. So that's another key point of why we do what we do is employment opportunities.
Right. And how many do you have in your team currently?
There's 10 of us, 10 plus me and Alex. Yeah.
Good job. 10 plus. And how long have you been running the business?
Just gone our 4th year.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Great growth, and fantastic. You're also able to add to the employment economy as well. That's fantastic. Well done, guys. I'm curious, the piece you talked about of maybe your approach takes slightly longer, a couple of weeks versus bashing down with the digger in a couple of days. Have you seen anything happening internationally around deconstruction that might allow more automation or faster speeds for what you can do?
Yeah, there's definitely assisted with some machinery, which is what we're starting to implicate in our projects. The use of a HIAB to begin with, to stop double handling of materials and assisting with pulling down structures as well. That's something we're just starting to integrate into our business.
There's only so much you can do to speed it up. We're never going to be like a 2-day digger job. So that's just part of the conversation.
Alex and Dylan, really keen to understand how this actually happens on site. You must have a lot of different materials, some that you can recycle, some that you can reuse, some that, of course, still have to go to landfill. Can you explain to me practically how does this happen on site when you're unbuilding?
Yes, so it's a very rigorous process on site that is very well dialed in with us and our guys now, is separating everything, basically. And so anything from different metals to jib linings, different timbers, curtains and blinds.
Different grades of things as well, from reusable to recyclable. Like we have different A, B, and even C grade timber that all the boys are able to identify on site.
Right.
Material separation is key, and identifying different timber species and things like that's also key to maximising the reuse, like joinery and and all of that, cutting those sorts of things out before you start taking roofing iron off to avoid it from getting broken on site. Little things like that, part of the methodology, just to make sure we can maximize the reusability is key.
Okay. So there's quite a skill for your teams on site being able to identify these different grades of timber as the example you use, etc. So quite a skill involved there as well, which is great development for your team also. You guys have been in the industry for 4 years now. You've grown your business. Is there any other avenues that you're thinking about in the construction zone that you think you might be able to add value to?
Yeah, taking exactly what we were talking about there, our businesses practices, and introducing it to the building industry as well. So we're looking at helping a lot of builders learn about, not just learn, but implement waste separation on site. So providing them with separate bags and bins for the likes of cardboard, polystyrenes, timbers, easily recyclable materials, but the standard of and the norm of a 9 cubic meter skip bin turning up on site just can't be it anymore. And if people want to be doing better, they need to be separating on site. So yeah, we're
pretty excited to kind of start teaching people and implementing that. And we're working on utilising our yard a bit more. We've spent a lot, probably like the last 3 weeks, Dylan and I have been out of the office and down to the yard, setting that up to get it ready so that we can start collecting, and we have now started collecting different bins from different sites where we can consolidate. We will begin at our yard separating out materials for reuse and recycling. Say a building site has a timber bag or a timber bin and they send it to us, we'll still process it and pull out whatever's good so that can be reused and distributed back to the community groups and things like that. And then whatever's not, we will recycle. So it's
while still tracking and being able to give that data back to the construction clients as well to say that you guys have diverted X amount from landfill and X amount going to reusable materials.
And the reporting side of it's quite important as well. We're hearing from a lot of people, they want real tangible data to show one, where things are going, what's actually happening to it, because there's providers out there who will take materials away and then issue kind of a bulk facility report of what comes in. There's all these different materials all mixed together and they're separating a lot of things out of and doing their best for recycling. But all they're issuing to their clients is, this is what the facility's doing. Congratulations. You're part of the puzzle kind of.
Yeah, which is hard for a lot of the clients that we're dealing with and talking to, some of the construction industry saying, for example, they might be getting an 80% diverted from landfill certification, but in reality, they might be doing 95 to plus, but it's the rest of the facility that's bringing them down, and they want to be able to prove that they're doing better than what's being told currently. So that's what we want to help try and solve as well.
Fantastic. Guys, it sounds like you're onto a winner. You're helping with our sustainability as a country. You're giving back to community. You're providing employment opportunities to people in your team. You're thinking bigger than just what you're doing right now. Congratulations on what you've achieved to date and also what you're planning to do going forward. I think you're making a massive contribution to our construction industry. So thank you for that. I'm sure we've got some listeners out there going, wow, I'd love to connect with these guys. I want to use them on my next job. What is the best way for people to get in contact with you guys?
Probably our website or, Google is a magic tool. You can Google Levela Deconstruction and all of our details are right there. You'll click call and you'll speak to myself or Dylan. You can link through to our website. Email addresses are all there and we're always happy to chat.
Fantastic. And we'll put your website details in the show notes of the podcast so people can access that nice and easily. And would you be open to maybe meeting someone for a beer down at the pub to talk through options?
Yes.
Always.
Coffee or beer, either way.
Like it. Good one, guys. Yep. Hey, thanks so much for the discussion today. It was really helpful. I've learned a lot and great to see the contribution you're making. So well done, guys. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having us on.
Brian. Appreciate it.